What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we are going to continue our coverage over IDW's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now, with that being said, we're still in the early stages of this universe that was created by IDW, which means that when it came to IDW, they wanted to make sure that their fans, their readers, spend a lot of time getting the chance to learn more about the Turtles and this universe, but also the characters around them as well. Now, in our last video, we did cover a one-shot that does focus on Raphael. In today's video, we're going to cover two more one-shots that does focus on other members of the actual main group. But on top of that, we're going to cover another chapter from the main series as well. Now, the first one shot we are going to cover, it does focus on Michelangelo to kind of understand what kind of character he is in the IDW universe, which honestly, he's kind of the same in almost every other version of this character. And so really, it's going to be more of a fun adventure of Michelangelo, doing some crazy things on New Year's. And the reason why I'm saying that, because we pick up with Michelangelo currently at the movies, and he's watching, one of those love fest kind of movies. Now, when it comes to Michelangelo, he feels kind of sad. And the reason why, because he wants to make sure the new year starts off with a bang, because last year was kind of rough for him and the Turtles, and also Splinter as well. He always says to himself that when it comes to a new year, you want to make sure the first day of that new year starts off right, because if it does, that means the rest of the new year is also going to start off right as well. And so with that being said, you have Michelangelo say, you know what, it's time for me to leave the movies and kind of explore the city to see what are the other people in the city are currently doing right now when it comes to celebrating New Year's. Now, while he is exploring, he does see a party going on at a nearby museum. He's kind of like, okay, cool. I wish I am able to go inside there and party with all those people. Now, luckily for Michelangelo, while he's kind of just observing the party from the outside, he does see someone walk outside wearing a costume. And apparently this person, we can tell as the readers, was planning to do something big inside the party, but unfortunately he got cold feet, and so he's backing out of the plan. And so he breaks his wristband that allows someone to go inside the party. And so when Michelangelo realized the guy is leaving, he says, you know what, I can pretend to be someone in a costume, even though that's not true, but also use that wristband as a way to get inside the party, which of course he does. And as soon as he gets inside, he is instantly trying to eat a bunch of different kinds of foods. Except that is the moment where he is confronted by some cat lady. And we can tell that she is very upset about the idea that he is late. Now, she believes that Michelangelo is somebody else known as Carl, the guy we saw earlier who kind of got cold feet when it came to the idea of doing some kind of plan with her. But either way, she believes that Michelangelo is Carl, and she's kind of like, you're late, you're in the wrong costume, either way, we gotta go. We need your tech skills to help us steal the item that we came here to steal. And so you have the cat lady take Michelangelo to meet the rest of the crew that her and Carl were supposed to work with. Now, of course, they all believe that Michelangelo is Carl, but of course he is not. Now, with that being said, he is confronted by three other people who are also dressed up as well. One is dressed up like a mime, the other one is dressed like some kind of princess, I guess, and the other one is dressed like Zorro. Either way, they all came here together to steal the item for somebody, and so they have to go through the plan. Now, at first, Michelangelo is very confused about what in the world is currently going on with him and his crew, but he does tag along, and he does go through the different obstacles that were placed in front of him and the crew. Now, it does lead up to the moment where they reach the room where apparently there is some kind of crystal they have to steal out of this room, but of course there is some tight security around it. And the thing was, Michelangelo is still pretending to be Carl. And so when it comes to the rest of the group here, they believe that he is Carl and Carl was a tech person. And so they were hoping that Carl would be able to hack into the security system so that they are able to get their hands on the crystal. But of course, they have Michelangelo. Now, when it comes to Michelangelo, he does remember a few things that he has learned in the past from his brothers, but unfortunately, it's kind of like not good enough to kind of help him hack into the system. But he does use his ninja skills to get through all the lasers to get his hands on the crystal. Now, here's the thing, because again, Carl was just a tech person and that was it. And so for Zoro, this begins the process of him kind of wondering if Carl is actually there. Now the cat lady, she's also wondering, but at the same time, the vibe is kind of like, that was really impressive. Kind of like she likes Michelangelo. Now you have Michelangelo basically realize that these guys came here to steal the item. And so his goal is to prevent that from actually happening. And so he breaks the glass vase the crystal is inside of, which means the alarms go off. And with that happening, of course, he begins to fight against Zoro and also the other two people who are with Zoro. I would say the cat lady as well, but she's also going to disappear by the end of this section. Either way, you have Michelangelo pretend to fight against Zoro and have a hard time fighting against him, to the point where Zoro does hit Michelangelo out of the window. But in reality, it was a fake hit. Not really a fake hit, really more of Michelangelo fake getting hit so that he can fall out the window with the crystal in his hand, so that he is able to supposedly get away. And so we see Michelangelo fake the fall, but he goes to the rooftop. Now, when he does arrive at the rooftop, well, he is confronted by the cat lady once again. Now, when it comes to the cat lady, we are told that she is actually a police officer who is undercover. And so she is wondering what in the world is going on when it comes to Michelangelo. Is he also someone else working undercover, or does he work for somebody else who also wanted their hands on the crystal? But in reality, it's just Michelangelo doing what's right for this place right here in the crystal. Now, when it comes to the cat lady, she does not tell us her name at all for right now, but of course, I'm telling you guys, she will be somewhat important for later stories down the road. Either way, she's kind of like, hey, hand over the crystal right now. But unfortunately, our two heroes, they are caught off guard by Zoro. Now, this is the moment where you have Zoro kind of show off that he's very stealthy like Michelangelo, but at the same time, he brings out his real gang, a bunch of men who also got guns as well, and they also want the crystal that Michelangelo was about to give over to our cat lady here. Either way, you do have our two heroes work together to fight against Zoro. And this fight does last for a few pages, but it's technically used as a way to kind of get us to the end of this one shot that was made to focus on Michelangelo. Either way, once you have our two heroes being able to stop Zoro, you have Michelangelo hand over the crystal to our mysterious cat lady, who is also a police officer. And we kind of find out that her name is Cara Lewis. She is a police officer, and like I said earlier, she might reappear in later chapters, but for right now, it's kind of like, okay, Michelangelo made a friend in the NYPD. That is great. And that wraps up the one shot for Michelangelo. And so then we jump into a chapter from the main series, issue number 6. Now, when it comes to issue number 6, it really does focus more on the turtles in the opening pages, following two ninjas who are also following somebody else. Now, when it comes to our turtles, they were told by Splinter, hey, I want you guys to observe these ninjas, to gather more intel on these ninjas, because we have no idea who they are. Well, actually, Splinter believes he has an idea who these ninjas could possibly be, but he's not 100% sure yet. And so for him, he's kind of like, we got to take our time and make sure the people that we are watching are not the ones I believe they are to be. Either way, when it comes to our heroes, the Turtles, they're watching these ninjas go after this one guy, and at first they want to help this innocent person who's being chased down by these ninjas, but you have Leonardo tell the group, no, we were told by Splinter to just observe, and that is it. We cannot step in. We need to gather intel and then leave as soon as we can. But the problem is Raphael, because Raphael believes it's not fair for this one guy to fight against two ninjas by himself. And so at first, you do have our Turtles just observe. But unfortunately, you have Raphael try to move in and save the guy from these two ninjas. Now, of course, you do have our heroes being able to kind of scare off the two ninjas, but the problem is the innocent person that just got stabbed by the two ninjas, yeah, he's dying. Matter of fact, he does die, except before he does die, he does tell Raphael one thing. War is coming. Now, when he says that, it is in French. Unfortunately, I'm not really good in French, but again, he is telling our heroes, war is coming very soon. Are you guys ready for that, possibly? We then pick up with Baxter Stockman. Now remember, Baxter Stockman runs a company known as Stock Gin. Now when it comes to Baxter, he has been trying his best to get Splinter back over here, because we have learned in our last few videos that when it comes to Baxter Stockman and his company Stock Gin, they have made something known as mutagen. And mutagen was technically used to turn our turtles into mutated people, and also Splinter and Old Man Hob here. Now when it comes to Hob, he was hired by Stockman to bring Splinter and the Turtles back over to Baxter, because Splinter also got another project injection inside of him. And so he has two different kind of chemicals that Stockman wants back from Splinter. Either way though, when it comes to Hob, he had failed when it came to capturing Splinter and also capturing the Turtles. And so he tells Stockman, I need an army. And you have Baxter say, don't worry, I got an army for you. Now there is another page that continues another plot line we had from our previous video where April O'Neil needs some extra money. And of course, she put a flyer up saying that, hey, if you need someone to tutor you in a certain subject, I can do that for you for a price. And Casey Jones found it. And so we do get reminded that Casey needs his grades up before he is kicked off the hockey team. But on top of that, we have to remember that he does live with an abusive father. Either way, he does call up April's phone number to schedule a meeting to begin the tutoring sessions. Now we do jump over to Splinter and the Turtles. Now when we do, it's really more of Splinter gathering intel from the Turtles, where he technically says the ninjas that we saw earlier belong to a group known as the Foot Clan. Now of course we have to remember, in our last video, Splinter told us a story about a great warrior known as Yoshi who had died alongside with his 4 sons by the hands of the Foot Clan in the early days of Japan. But apparently this is Splinter saying that 1, the Foot Clan has returned, and 2, he believes that him and the Turtles have been reincarnated, that there is a possibility that he was Yoshi in that past life, which means the Turtles was his sons in the past life as well. Now when it comes to Splinter, as he is saying this, you have Donatello kind of expressing the idea that he believes his father, his master, Splinter, is just, you know, saying some crazy things, because there's no science out there that proves that people are able to reincarnate. And so for Donatello, it's kind of like, listen, unless you have some kind of scientific proof that people or animals or really anything is able to reincarnate in a new life, I don't believe the idea that me, you, and my brothers were in Japan in the early days fighting against the Foot Clan. Now, when it comes to Splinter, he kind of goes back over the origin of the Turtles in the IDW universe, but at the same time, he's kind of like, listen, I realize that Stockton was doing a lot of evil things, but I feel like science was technically used as a way to bring us back to life, to give us a new life. And so that's your science proof right there, my son. Now we have to jump back over to Casey Jones, and really this is kind of very brief, but you have Casey walking up to April O'Neil's apartment where he knocks on the door. At first he meets the roommate and she's all like, oh no, you're here for my roommate to tutor you. And she is speaking of April, and this is the moment where you have April and Casey Jones meeting each other for the first time ever in IDW's universe. But then we have to jump back over to Hob. And when we do, we see Hob still hanging out with Baxter as you have the two characters heading over to a secret part of Baxter's lab where you have Baxter give Hob some kind of weapon to kind of help him deal with capturing Splinter, but also capturing the Turtles. Now, it's not just one weapon. Matter of fact, it's an army of weapons. And this is where we are introduced to the Mousers in the IDW universe. Small little robots that are able to bite on your body, but then they have the ability to explode as well. This is Baxter saying, use this right here. Use these small robots to help you capture Splinter and also the Turtles. We should have no more problems at all with the Turtles and Splinter getting away from you. So get to work. Now the next one shot that we are going to focus on is all about Donatello. Now when it comes to this one shot here, it really kind of shows that Donatello is not like his brothers, or he's very unique from the rest of his brothers. Because even though all the Turtles are ninjas technically, when it comes to Donatello, he's very nerdy than the rest of the Turtles are. And so when you have the Turtles go back home to the sewers, they all relax differently. And when it comes to Donatello, the only thing he wants to do is sit on the computer and play different kind of games and join in different kind of chat rooms to talk about different kind of nerdy things. Now when it comes to Donatello, he does try to get his brothers involved, but unfortunately they're not as hyped into video games or other kinds of nerdy things like Donatello is. And so unfortunately he has to make friends in the chat rooms that he goes in online. Now that is the moment where he finds out about some kind of science expo. Now at first he is afraid to go, but he remembered that he is a ninja and they have the ability to kind of blend in without anyone noticing their true colors. Now here's the thing, because before he decides to go over to the actual science expo, he does tell us that in one of the chat rooms he ran into somebody that he technically does not like that much. As a matter of fact, he says that person is his rival. Either way, he does head over to the Science Expo. Now, when Donatello arrives to this Science Expo, he's very excited about the idea that at least he is surrounded by people who are just like him. The thing is, he does run into a new character known as Harold Lidja. And that's why I said at the very beginning of this video that when it comes to the early stories of IDW, they really want you to focus on knowing more about the Turtles, but also the different kind of characters that they possibly might meet in their adventures in different books. Either way, when it comes to Donatello, he does run into a character known as Harold Lidja. Now, I really hope I pronounce his name correctly, his last name. Harold, that's easy. Either way, when it comes to Harold, he's showing off his anti-gravity gauntlet. And of course, he tries to use the gauntlet on a hot dog stand that was right next to him. Now, once he is able to show off that it actually does work, it's a great thing. But unfortunately, he still has some bugs to work out because the gauntlet does shut down. And of course, he drops the hot dog stand and it breaks. And so with him doing that, he just did property damage at this expo, which means he's disqualified from the actual competition, but he also must get the heck out of there. Now, for Donatello, he was really impressed with what Harold was able to build and what he was able to do. Matter of fact, he does see Harold pull out another invention where he is able to kind of like camouflage or disappear or kind of go astral form for a tad bit. But either way, it kind of shows off that Harold is somewhat of a genius, but unfortunately nobody is paying attention to him, and also he was just disqualified from the competition. But out of nowhere, you do have a group of men appear to grab Harold and take him away to somewhere else in the building. Now, for Donatello, he's kind of like, that right there is not a good sign. I should follow and make sure that everything is okay with Harold. Now, when it comes to Harold, he was taken over to a private meeting room where he is confronted by Baxter Stockman. Now remember, Baxter is one of the early bad guys for the Turtles, what we've seen so far in the earlier videos and also in the earlier chapters of this video. Now, with that being said, when it comes to Baxter, the reason why he wants to meet up with Harold, because he wants to use Harold as a way to hunt down the turtles that he has been looking for. So now we kind of find out it's not just Hob out there who is trying to capture Splinter and the turtles, it's also other people that Baxter is trying his best to bring in to hunt down the turtles as well. Now, the reason why he is asking Harold, because of Harold's backstory. We kind of find out that Harold was a well-known scientist in the world, and matter of fact, he had a great partner as well. The problem is though, his partner took his ideas, ran with it, and did not give Harold any kind of credit at all. And so unfortunately, Harold's career began to fall apart, to the point where you had Harold try his best to prove that his ex-partner's work was not his work, it was actually Harold's work. But unfortunately, nobody believed Harold. But again, Baxter realized that Harold is a great inventor. And he's like, listen, I bet you have all the different kind of tech that could help you and help me hunt down the turtles. Now, I had created you a device that can actually help you to find the turtles. Use this to hopefully find one, and then use your tech to bring it in. Now, you do have Baxter show off what his tech can do, meaning that it can locate a turtle. Unfortunately, it locates Donatello because he was in the room, watching over Harold and also Baxter. And so it does lead into Donatello having to fight against two different forces. So at first, he has to fight against the security guards that came with Baxter. But on top of that, he has to fight against Harold as well in the different kind of techs that Harold has brought with him. And so unfortunately for our hero, this is an actual challenge for him. Now, when it comes to Donatello, he is trying his best to actually talk Harold out of the idea of helping out Baxter. Because again, when it came to Harold, his last partner screwed him over. And so you have Donatello telling Harold, why in the world are you going to work with Baxter? Now, when it comes to our hero, he knows that Baxter is the guy who had technically mutated him, Splinter, and his brothers as well. And so he's trying to say, hey Harold, listen, Baxter is a bad guy. You cannot trust him. Matter of fact, just like your last partner left you out, by yourself alone to defend yourself, Baxter is going to do the same thing as well. He is going to literally screw you over. So why not go ahead and help me to escape? But on top of that, realize it's the right thing to do. Now, you also have our two characters, Harold and also Donatello, realize they know each other. Because remember, they said, or really Donatello said, that he had a rival in one of the chat rooms that he participates in online. That rival is Harold. And so once you have the two characters realize they know each other, it kind of gives Harold more motivation to go after Donatello. But then you still have our hero talk to Harold to convince Harold to help him out. Because again, why do you want to work with Baxter with the possibility he could technically screw you over like your ex-partner did? And so the rest of the story is really more of Harold and Donatello working together to kind of, escape the building that's being controlled apparently by Baxter. Now, you do have our two characters work together on the anti-gravity gauntlet. And once they do that, they're able to use it as a way to escape the building. Now, once they do escape, they do go their separate ways, and we're kind of left to wonder if these two characters could become friends. And at first, we're kind of left to believe there's no way because the way Harold acts. But then you have Harold go home and actually invite Donatello to a game online, which kind of shows that he may not like Donatello, but it kind of like he respects Donatello. Either way, the story ends on that note right there. So with that being said, guys, please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.